Welcome back to Body Talk with Becks. This week I had the opportunity of speaking with Kylee, who was also born with bladder exstrophy, and I wanted to give a few definitions of some medical terms that will be thrown around in this episode and that are fairly common in the bladder exstrophy world before jumping into the actual interview. So, to start with, a bladder augmentation is a procedure where the bladder is enlarged. So, the top of the bladder is cut open, then a piece of the small or large intestine is removed and detubularized and attached to the cut open bladder. They are then sewn together, and this thus creates kind of like a patch for the bladder, essentially, making it larger. Next, a bladder neck wrap is when tissue, typically sourced from the muscles that form the bladder wall, are used to wrap around the bladder neck, making it narrower. Deflux is an injectable gel used to treat reflux. So reflux is when urine backflows into the ureters and kidneys. Deflux, this injectable gel, is injected into the bladder wall where the ureter meets the bladder. An osteotomy is a surgical procedure that involves cutting bone to reshape or realign bones. In this case, it is used to restore the sling of the pelvic floor muscles, thus reducing tension in the closed bladder and the lower abdominal wall and promoting continence. So urodynamic studies are tests that kind of show how well the bladder, sphincters, and urethra are holding and releasing urine. They show how well the bladder works and why there could be leakage or blockages. There are several types of urodynamics. They're usually typically performed together. I'm just going to list off a few ones that are pretty common. So the first one is cystometry, is a pressure flow study that is used to measure how much urine the bladder can hold. It also measures the pressure inside the bladder and how full it is when you have to go. Electromyography is a test that tests the electrical activity of the muscles and nerves in the pelvic floor. So this test measures the strength as well as the activity of the muscles. Uroflowmetry measures how much urine comes out and how fast. This test is typically used to show if there's a blockage and where it is. The voiding pressure study measures the pressure in your bladder as you urinate. So a void pressure catheter will be in place while you go, and it will measure how much the bladder muscles are working. And this last one is not a urodynamics test, but it is a common test that I've had and referenced a few times in previous episodes. A cystoscopy allows your doctor to examine the lining of your bladder and urethra. A cystoscope, which is a hollow tube equipped with a lens at the end, is inserted into your urethra and slowly advanced into your bladder. And those are all of the medical terms that I wanted to define today. If you want to learn more about any one of these things, I have all kinds of resources in the show notes, so make sure to check that out. And now we will jump into our interview with Kylee.
So thanks for chatting with me.
Of course.
Yeah, I'm always excited to meet more bladder exstrophy people. I never really knew anyone else with bladder exstrophy growing up. So I think you're the second person that I've actually met and talked to about bladder exstrophy. So
No way.
yeah.
Well, that's so cool. I mean, you're moving to California, back to California.
Yes. Yeah.
Are you in California right now?
We're in Washington right now.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah. That's cool. We're both from California.
Yeah. What part of Washington?
I'm in Seattle.
Oh, cool. That's where I had a lot of my surgery.
Yeah, me too. Seattle Children's.
Yep.
Yes.
I saw Dr. Mitchell and Dr. Grady.
Ew.
Yeah.
Dr. Mitchell was the best.
Yes. I know when he retired or like moved to Wisconsin,
Yep.
I was so sad. I was like, what?
We followed him to Wisconsin.
No way.
Yeah, we saw him in Wisconsin like 3 years before he actually like retired.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but when he retired, it was a sad moment.
Yeah. And who do you see now?
I don't have a regular urologist right now. I probably should,
Yeah.
but I don't.
No. It's hard, like when you're getting like when you're older, it's like, where the heck do I go?
Yeah, you're like, my parents did all this research for me.
No, literally, that's what I've been dealing with this year. I'm like, wait, I actually need a urologist that actually knows what they're doing. So, like, how do I do this?
You can't just like see any random urologist. Because I've had to explain to urologists like what bladder exstrophy is.
Yeah.
Kind of ridiculous.
Yeah. I'm like, this is what's happening. And they're like, doesn't sound like something we can help you with. I'm like, okay.
Right.
So who do I see?
And they're just like, I don't know.
Like somebody, I'm like, well, I don't want to pay to go to like Maryland.
Yeah.
So recently I found a doctor at the Primary Children's in Salt Lake that's actually like, hey, yeah, we'll take you in, even though I'm like an adult now.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So it's been really nice.
Good. So you have a regular person and you like them. They know what they're
Yeah. Yeah. No, they know what they're doing. I was so happy because I've been having like a lot of infections lately and just like a bunch of random issues.
Yeah.
And I was like seeing an adult urologist, but they were like, we know what bladder exstrophy is, but we're not like specialists. And I'm like, so then I ended up like going on this journey to find a specialist. And so now, yeah, I see a Dr. Schaefer, and he's really cool.
Amazing. That's great. I had a bunch of problems crop up when I went away to college too.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just like that transition period from like teenage to adulthood that your bladder is just like,
I can't do this anymore.
Yeah. So did your parents know that you were going to have bladder exstrophy like before you were born or?
No, they didn't.
Yeah. I feel like that seems to be a general consensus.
Yeah. Especially for people that are like not younger than like, or that are older than like 8 or 10. I feel like a lot of the like younger generations, they're like, yeah, we found it on ultrasound. But for me,
yeah,
they couldn't even find if I was like a male or a female on the ultrasound. Like,
oh, wow.
Like, this is so weird. We can't tell if your baby's a boy or a girl. I guess we'll have to wait till when they're born.
How funny. I don't think I ever asked my mom if they knew ahead of time, like what gender I was going to be. But I remember when I was, well, I don't remember obviously, but like she told me that when I was like first born, they didn't know what gender I was. And the doctor was like, I think she's a female. She has all of the right parts for a female, but I'm going to just double check. And then she like in front of my mom was like showing her, oh, like, well, here's all of her ovaries and stuff. So clearly it's a female. My mom's like, I don't care. I just want you to put my child back together. Like, yes. I don't want to see her insides.
Yeah, no, that's actually very similar to what happened. My mom had me and she was like, so is it a boy or a girl? And they were like, I think it's a girl.
Yeah.
And they're like, you think? And then they're like, I think that's a bladder.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, oh. And so then she also was like, so what do we do?
So what now? You gonna fix it?
Literally. Yeah. And then they tried to put it back in. Like that doctor was like, I think I can put it back in. And this was just like a random doctor in California and in Sacramento area. And so he was like, I think I can put it back in. So then they tried and then it came back out. Like a couple weeks later, my mom and dad were like, what is happening?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And they my grandma had just gotten a computer. This was in 1999.
Right.
So my grandma was like, I am going to search on the internet. So she went on to some kind of like forum that had talked about bladder exstrophy, kind of like the Facebook groups, but back then it was not Facebook.
That hadn't been invented yet.
Yeah, they were like, you need to get your granddaughter out of there and take her to somewhere where they actually know what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So then they took me up to Washington, and then I had a lot of my surgeries.
Yeah.
Washington.
Yeah. How long? Well, when was your first surgery? Like, my first surgery, I was only 2 hours.
Yeah. So when I think they waited till the next day because I think that doctor didn't know what he was doing. So that's what I was told. I was told my mom's like, I swear he went home and read up on it and then did it.
Oh, I 100% believe that. Our doctor didn't know what he was doing either. He legit didn't know it was a bladder. She saw him like flipping through a textbook trying to figure out what it was. And then when he found what it was, I wound up being airlifted out from Santa Cruz down to Stanford. Okay. And they had a specialist there that actually like knew what he was doing and was able to put everything back. But
that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. My bladder came back out, and then they flew me up to Dr. Mitchell, and he did the closure again. I think I was like 2 weeks old.
Oh, wow.
And then they did like an augmentation, and then they did a lot of random stuff. And so I had surgeries from like when I was a newborn, like every year until I was like 12.
Yeah.
Because it was a lot of trial and error.
Oh, yeah.
For me. Yeah.
I'm just trying to think of like what the process would have been. Like, how did it come back out?
Yeah.
Just like not close you up properly. Like,
I don't know, because my mom was like, it was so weird. You're like, it like came back out of my stitches like slowly. It looked like infected, but then just like came back out. I was like,
what?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm like, I'm glad I don't remember that.
Yeah. That's gnarly. Wow.
My mom and dad were like freaking out. My mom was like, apparently this doctor was at like a conference, so he wasn't even there. And yeah, it was like a huge mess.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. At least they found Dr. Mitchell like pretty quickly, like a couple of weeks in. We didn't find Dr. Mitchell until I was like 3 or 4.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, no, I'm really grateful they found him pretty soon. And then I was looking through, I just recently got all my medical records from Seattle because I have that new doctor now, and it's 350 pages long. And the beginning is like these old handwritten charts, like patient has a dehisced bladder. And like, it's like all these like stressful things that are happening. I'm like, wow, I'm grateful that they were there to take care of me.
Yeah. Like, I don't know if I could have taken care of
No, I couldn't have. And apparently there were like a bunch of miracles with like insurance and all that stuff, because they weren't even sure they were going to take my insurance till like halfway through my surgery.
Oh my gosh.
So they were like, had me going into surgery with like not knowing that my insurance was going to cover it or something like that.
Like fingers crossed, hoping everything goes through. Wow.
Yeah,
that's
so
incredible.
I'm very grateful for my parents and all that they fought a lot for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hearing a lot from people that I've talked to so far, is that their parents have just like done the best they could and like really, looked out for their kids.
Yeah.
Which like, I hope if I'm ever in that position, I can be as strong as as my mom was.
Yeah, same. I feel like sometimes even for myself, I'm married, and I'm always looking at my husband. I'm like, man, being my own advocate sucks.
Yes, it does.
It's so much harder than I thought it would be. So I have a lot of phone calls with my mom where I'm like, Mom, how did you do this?
I, yes, have called her a million times asking the same questions.
Yeah. She's like, you got this. I'm like, oh, okay. I do got it.
Awesome. Well, do you want to take us through chronologically then of everything that you can remember, like different treatments and surgeries that you had?
Yep. So, yeah, they put my bladder back in the second time when I was really young. And then I think when I was around 3, they did an augmentation. So they augmented my bladder with my bowel. They like reconstructed some stuff. And I think I got a mitrofanoff around then too. And then a lot of like after that, I just kept going back because I was very incontinent. So they didn't tie off my bladder neck. And so they tried to inject like deflex and Botox.
Yep. I had all those too. Yeah.
Yeah. So they did all those. Every year we'd go back and they'd be like, okay, we're doing a day procedure tomorrow. And I'd be like, okay.
Yep.
Mom's like, you're going under anesthesia. And I'm like,
I had all those too. Oh
yes.
my gosh.
I just remember a lot of the times though, when I would like wake up, I'd be like, Mom, I just peed. And they're like, that's exactly what we didn't want happen. So then when I was around in 4th grade, I got like a bunch of bladder infections. So they were like, well, we could try doing a bladder neck wrap. So they did a bladder neck wrap. I don't really know what that is, but I know that it failed.
Okay.
I also, when I was 3, I had an osteotomy. And then they did it again. So a lot of my surgeries I've had multiple times.
Wow.
So I had 2 osteotomies. Then they did the bladder neck wrap when I was in 4th grade. And I had a little bit less bladder infections. But then Dr. Grady was like, well, we could augment it again. So then when I was like 11, Dr. Grady and Dr. Mitchell worked together and augmented my bladder again. And then that's when Dr. Mitchell went to Wisconsin. And Dr. Grady was my main doctor. But then he passed away. And so I started seeing a urologist in UC Davis. And she did a vaginoplasty for me when I was 16. And she did like random cystoscopies, kind of just like that's where you go in the camera.
Yeah, that face was because those are painful and I hate them.
I was asleep a lot of the time. But yeah, no, I don't like them either. So she's done that. And like I've had polyps apparently in my stomach. Yeah, so I've had a lot where they just a lot of maintenance work. And then I recently started getting a bunch of bladder infections again. My mom keeps saying like, I feel like we're in your 4th grade year again. I'm like, I know. So then recently, actually last Thursday, they put me under and they like, since it's a new doctor, he was like, okay, I want to get like a lay of the land. I want to see everything. And I also want to like make sure your stoma's doing okay. Like, because apparently my mitrofanoff stoma's going on 20 years. And apparently they're not supposed to last like forever. Oh. So he's like, you might need a reconstruction sometime soon.
Oh my
and I was
gosh.
like, oh. Okay. And also we're like maybe thinking about having a baby. So it's just like a lot of stuff. So he went in with a gynecologist that knows a lot about exstrophy and they did some like testing to see if my fallopian tubes were scarred over and they like checked out my mitrofanoff and they found that there was like a flap covering the end of my mitrofanoff to my bladder. So that was interesting because then they like cut a hole in it because I've been having a hard time cathing. So they like cut a hole so that there's a more direct path to my bladder. And ever since, I've been cathing pretty well. And apparently my fallopian tubes are great. My uterus is great. They're all just kind of in weird places. So backtrack a little bit. When I was 16, I randomly was like, had a bunch of stomach pain. And they found out after a year of like a bunch of testing that I was just extremely constipated. So I had like an endoscopy and a colonoscopy, and they were like, what the heck is going on? Because I would just like throw up all the time. And they're like, oh, yeah, you need to be hospitalized and clean out your bowels. So they put an NG tube in and cleaned out my bowels, and that was awful. And now I just take laxatives like all the time, and that just keeps me regular. But they said it could be because of like the scarring in my bowels because of the 2 augmentations.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Scars can really mess with you.
Yeah.
They're internal like that. Yeah.
So I've got that. And then I also had a lot of back pain when I was in high school because I was doing a lot of sports. And they were like, oh, by the way, you don't really have like a pelvic bone, like connecting your hips. And I was like, oh, and they're like, you should probably not run on hard surfaces, just swim. And I was like, but I'm tennis captain and I play basketball and softball and I love sports. That's my life. So, yeah, so that was in high school. Then I stopped kind of running a lot. And then recently I also have started having a lot of back pain again. So now I'm figuring things out, trying to do physical therapy and lots of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Finding that happy medium of like just enough working out that you've built the back muscles enough, but like not so much that you're just like damaging yourself at the same time.
Yeah. Because I feel like growing up, they always were like, you can do anything you want. All it is, you just pee differently than everyone else. And I'm like, okay. So I did everything. Like I played volleyball, basketball, softball. I did leadership. I did Girl Scouts. I did a bunch of stuff. I was always doing stuff. I worked at a movie theater and I did a bunch of stuff. And then it was just causing me so much pain. And I was like, I felt so frustrated because I was like, I've created this life that I want. And now it's kind of feels like it's like being taken away because my body can't do the things I want to do.
Right.
So that's what I've been going through a lot lately. Like I've had to quit like my past 3 jobs just because like my back hurts so bad. And it's weird because it's not just one thing that makes it hurt. It's very like day to day. Like, okay, well, I just sat for too long, so now I'm hurting. And then I'm standing too long or I'm twisting or just random stuff. So it's been a very frustrating process. And a lot of doctors saying like, just listen to your body. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. I'm like, trying. Apparently I haven't been listening to my body my whole life. So yeah, that's kind of my what I remember from my growing up surgery and medical appointments.
Yeah. What did you have reconstructed vaginally?
Yeah, so when I was little, I think Dr. Mitchell reconstructed my vagina, and then when I was 16, they did another reconstruction. I didn't ask very many questions, so I was really uncomfortable about it. Yeah, when it happened. Yeah. But then when I got married, I was like, I probably should have paid more attention. So now I'm going to see also my physical therapist and the gynecologist that I'm working with now are also like helping me figure that stuff out as well. They're like, maybe I need to do like, what was it called? Something about estrogen stuff. I have to do stuff with estrogen and dilating and stuff that I didn't know that I needed to do.
I'm sure you could find like somewhere in those 300 pages of medical history, like exactly what they did, but that'd be a nightmare to dig through to find.
Yeah, no, the craziest thing is when I'm reading through it, because sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm going to read it today. I'm going to understand it. And then I like can only get through a couple pages because I'm like searching up all of the words. And then I get scared because it's kind of scary, the things that are being said. I'm like, wait, nobody told me this. And then I'll like text my mom and be like, did you know that they did this? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, maybe you told me, but I just don't remember because it was just in a time in my life when I was younger and didn't understand, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. So to use the bathroom, are you fully just catheterizing right now?
So I actually still am not 100% continent. So they haven't tied off my bladder neck or anything. The deflects never work. The Botox never works. So I just cath every 2 hours or whenever I feel like I need to. But I've actually realized as I've gotten older, like I can just control my urethra a lot more. So I think that's the positive that's come from all my sports. Is some reason those muscles have developed more where I barely like leak, but I do just wear like panty liners to be able to like not pee myself. But I normally don't, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. The deflects and Botox always worked for me. And I mean, it always like wore off like after a year. So we went back every year and had to have it done again. But I was really into dance a lot. And I got like really serious about it during like high school and college. And like at a certain point, Dr. Mitchell said I didn't need to have the deflects anymore just because like all the physical activity that I was doing like built it up enough. So
yeah,
definitely a plus side, but yeah, not great when you're older and you kind of stop dancing as much.
Yeah, no, I feel that.
Yeah.
That's awesome that it always worked though. I always wonder, I feel like when I was a kid, I was like, I always felt kind of guilty because I'd come out and be like, okay, does this work? And then I would try to pee. And so I'm like, what if I just ruined all of those surgeries just because I like put pressure or something on it? I'm like, I don't know. I also have a lot of anxiety. So I think about a lot of those things. I'm like, who knows? But I can't worry about it now because it already happened. Now we can focus on today and the future. But so I don't know. I always wonder, I'm like, what if I had deflects now?
Right. Who knows? Maybe it would work.
Yeah, maybe it'd work, but maybe I don't even need it because I've been trying to swim a lot more to keep my body like in shape. And because they said like the more that I'm in shape and active, like the better I'll feel, but also like the better my mitrofanoff will work and the longer it'll last.
Interesting.
Yeah. Because they said like if I gain a lot of weight, like it could kink off my mitrofanoff or make it like not work as well.
Interesting. I guess that makes sense if you actually think about it.
Yeah. I know, I'm like, but I like chocolate. I also, since I've been getting a lot of like bladder infections, they think my body might be like overworking itself. So I'm developing some kind of an autoimmune thing.
Oh, no.
So I've been really exhausted the past 6 months because I'm on like anti-inflammatories and all these stuff. So I'm trying to stay active, but also like heal myself.
Right.
Because it's just this whole like, okay, what is every moment of every day is just different.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of patience, which is not something that I excel in. I'm very like, I don't know how to explain it. I like get things done.
Yeah.
And I do things and I'm organized and I love it. But when I can't control my life, it's scary.
Yeah, I feel that.
Yeah.
I think it's just we're also so used to like having so much uncertainty, like growing up with everything that we try to just control everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think I'm very much the same way.
Yeah. I've noticed that a lot where I'm like, well, at least I control how often I cath, or like there's the amount of stuff that I feel like I felt growing up. There was so much pressure. I had to irrigate, I had to flush, like I had to cath, or else like I was gonna get sick, or I was gonna have my bladder explode. So I'm like, okay, what are the things I can control? Because there's so many things that you just can't.
Right. Absolutely. So did you go to a regular school, or like how were you with all of your medical things? How was schooling and like friends and hobbies? I mean, you already touched on like that you were into a lot of hobbies like high school and stuff, but I'm just curious what your schooling was like, because I missed a lot of school and we wound up actually homeschooling because there was no way I could keep up with a regular. Yeah,
that makes sense. So I did go to public school from kindergarten till the end of high school. And I actually went to all of college as well. And I just graduated with my bachelor's. So I did all of that like in person, except for COVID. But all of I did regular schooling. The only year that I almost didn't pass was 4th grade, when I was so sick all the time. My mom was like so scared that I was going to have to redo 4th grade. But my mom and dad both really wanted me to like have a quote unquote like normal childhood as much as I could. So they like tried to treat me as much as like just like my siblings, and like sent me to normal school, had me do normal hobbies and activities. But it was interesting because I feel like there was this like, I always kind of put on this show of like, I am a normal person, but internally I never really talked about how I was really feeling about having exstrophy and things like that. It was kind of just like a party trick growing up to me.
Yeah.
So like growing up in elementary school, I remember I would have like friends go to the nurse's office with me, and like I'd be like, guys, come in. I am going to pee out of my belly button. And they'd be like, ah! And so like everybody always really knew that I would go to the nurse, and like I would tell people, and I always had I was very social. So like I did student council like all of high school and middle school. I was in band. I did a lot of stuff. I just did a lot of stuff and knew a lot of people. And so I feel like I had a relatively like average, growing up experience, but I think I internalized a lot of like my feelings because it was so unique to all the people around me. And I never, like, I knew people that had bladder exstrophy because my mom started like a like a group when I was literally like 1. So like every year growing up, I would go to this camp where people had bladder exstrophy. And then when I was 11, I'd go to youth rally and know more people that had exstrophy and related conditions. And so I always thought like, oh, I'm fine because all these other people are going through it with me. I'm not alone. But I never really like talked about the really hard stuff that kind of affected my self-image. Mm-hmm. So I feel like a lot of people were like, oh, she's just like really social, really positive, really talented. There's nothing wrong in her life. She even has like this birth defect, but it doesn't really affect her because it just kind of makes her have a superpower where she can pee out of her belly button. But internally for me, it was like, I'm not like everyone else here. I always have to be thinking about like, okay, am I cathing? Is like, do I have a bladder infection? Am I clean enough? Can I go swimming? Because is this like a clean place or not a clean place? And like a lot of self-image things I really struggled with. Like an average teenager, like I did like, oh, I always would be like, I'm so fat, even though I wasn't fat. Yeah. But then on top of that, I had a bunch of scars. And I always knew that like my genitalia wasn't normal. But I never really like was the type of person to look up stuff. So I'd be like, well, I don't know what it's supposed to look like, but I'm freaking out because what if no one will like me because of this? And it was just a lot of internal stress that I never really talked about because it was just uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You know? So I feel like my parents did the best they could and I did the best I could. But then when I was in college, I realized like, and once I was like with my significant other and I was in college, I was like, oh, wait, I don't have to hold all this stuff in and I can actually like talk to professionals who can help me with all this stuff.
Yeah.
That's something I wish I had when I was in high school and middle school and elementary school, because I never talked to a professional or anyone. I just was like, haha, life's great.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that like looking back, because I totally agree with like looking back on it, I wish I had been talking to someone about things like that, about all of the things that I internalized. And like, I've only recently started seeing someone and talking about things. And I just think it's so funny thinking like, oh, I wish I would have. It's like, would I really have talked to someone though at that age? I probably would have just sat there and been like, I don't understand the point of this. Why I'm here and talking about it.
Yes, that's literally me. I was like, my nickname was Smiley Kylie. I always was like, life is great. Like I always focused on the positive. So I feel like if I talk to someone, I'd be like, I don't know why I need to talk to you, you know?
Yeah.
So it's interesting, but the other thing I wonder is if people had brought things up or asked me specific questions, I would have been able to process things, but I think everything happens for a reason at a right time. So I think once I did start having those conversations, I was like, oh, yeah, I am emotionally mature enough to have these kind of conversations and recognize this part of my life that I would probably not have opened up about before.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like now I'll talk about the emotional side of things too. But like back then, if someone asked me a question, it would have been all like prattling off all the physical things going on, all of the surgeries and scars and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, this one's from this. And like, this one's from when I was little. And like,
yeah. Like, oh, this scar is cool, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So your mom started a bladder exstrophy community when you were little. That's pretty cool. So she was pretty involved then.
Super involved. She still is. She started it with our awesome friend, Doug. Doug Kreitz, his daughter also has exstrophy. And so my mom had gone to like I think it was a ABC thing in Seattle, like a camp or something, when I was really young. And she's like, we need one of these for California. And somehow she got connected with Doug. Then they started the group, and it just kind of blossomed because like when I was graduating high school, I think around 2017, it became a nonprofit. So like,
wow,
it's been going on for 22 or 23 years now. And it's really fun because now I'm on the board, and it's fun to like think about ways to help kids that were just like me and help people that are just like me and help myself, you know?
Yeah. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's so cool. I've met some of my best friends through that. That's why I'm like, oh, it's crazy. You haven't talked to so many people. I'm like, you should come camp with us. We go camping every year. But I also, this year, I started like a couple months ago, actually. I was like, well, I really feel like I wish I just kind of had personal connections with people that had exstrophy and that I talked to them a lot more. So I started like a Zoom call every month. So anyone who wants to join that has exstrophy, we just hop on Zoom once a month and just chat. And it's actually been like one of the best things and most healing things for me, because it's helped me realize like, oh, I'm not the only one feeling these like emotions, and has given me a spot to like talk about them with people that relate.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's super cool. And it's really fun because we also play like games. So we play like two truths and a lie. And it was so funny because one person was like, I pee out of my belly button as one of their things. And then everyone's like, well, that has to be true. But then they were like someone that didn't have a mitrofanoff. So it was just like, we all just laughed so hard.
That's pretty funny.
It's very funny. And it's fun because like people join from all over the US and other countries. Like I have some friends in Argentina that have exstrophy, that they have a nonprofit there. So it's just like so cool to be able to connect with so many people.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And it's crazy because I feel like there's so many people that don't know of the resources that there are. Because I'm like, okay, so now I'm going to get a master's degree starting in August. And so it's a degree in like interdisciplinary studies. So I'm going to be studying education, nonprofit management, and human values.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And one of the things I want to do is like help the exstrophy community through the Bladder Exstrophy support team nonprofit. And so I was like, I want to help make sure there's more resources and help people get the resources that are out there, because I feel like even me being connected to my mom and through the nonprofit this whole time, there's still so many more. Like
it's still so hard to find sources, even when you're like part of the community and supposedly know like where to go to find sources.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Literally. I'm like, my doctor, the new one that I just found, he literally has a therapist that knows what exstrophy is and specializes in like talking to people about those specific issues.
Oh my gosh.
And I just started talking to her like last month. And I was like, what? Like, who are you? Where did this come from? And like physical therapists that know like the pelvic floor specific therapies that exstrophy patients need. And just like so many different resources that are out there that I'm like, what the heck? I wish I knew about these. And I hope I can help more people, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's really cool.
Yeah. And the other thing is like growing up, once you're out of the pediatric world, like I don't know what to do as an adult. And a lot of my friends that are also adults, they're like, I haven't seen a doctor in 5 years. Yep. I'm like, okay, so how do I help you? Like, how do I help you know that you should see a doctor, number one? And number two, who do you even see?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the other side of that too is like struggling with insurance, because like depending on your insurance, you have to see like specific people. But if they don't know your specialty of what you need, like you're kind of just stuck.
Yeah.
And then it can get expensive.
Oh my gosh, it can get so expensive. And I'm so scared so right now I'm on my dad's insurance, but I'm so scared for when I have to be on my own. And so I've actually been looking like into disability stuff, because right now like holding a job with my unstable health has been super hard. And so I'm like, well, how am I going to be able to hold a job and get good insurance? And then I'm freaking out. So it's just and then getting disability and all that, those benefits, like the insurance that comes with that, even though it's not like the best insurance, it is better than other insurances. So that's why I'm like, well, but even if you want to get that, you have to get like lawyers and go through a bunch of years of stuff. So I'm like, this is stupid.
Yeah, they make it too hard.
Yeah, it's really hard. And this is crazy. When I got a urodynamics test like a month ago, and I also don't like those.
I hate those. I was going to say, you saw my face, didn't you? I freaking hate those. Yeah. Those were the worst.
Oh, those were traumatizing as a child.
Yes.
And so I was so scared to get one. And then I got it and I was like, I don't like those. But the doctor that was doing it, he was talking about a research study that just was done. And this is what I remember. So I don't know if it's 100% fact.
Okay.
This is what I remember. He said that they compared urological birth defects to other birth defects and how much they costed. And they found that the urological ones did cost more than even like heart disease patients and all those. And this is just like from birth to the age of 3. And so then they compared all of the bladder ones, and the most expensive birth defect was bladder exstrophy.
Wow.
And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Like that, yeah. And even the maintenance, like, it's terrifying. Like if I randomly can't get my catheter in and have to go to the ER and
it's so expensive.
Yeah, it's so expensive. And even just getting like the medical supplies.
Yeah.
And with the saline shortage right now, the medical companies can't send it to us with our insurance. So if we want saline, we're going to even have to go find it somewhere else and pay that out of pocket or make it ourselves, which isn't super sanitary.
Right.
So I'm just like, oh.
It's a lot.
And it's so much.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just remembering like my mom arguing with the insurance companies just so I could get catheters delivered every month.
Yeah.
I think
I
think it's because we were using the male catheters with my mitrofanoff. And so they were arguing with us that they wouldn't cover the cost of the male ones because I was female.
Yeah. But the female ones don't go to your bladder. They're so short.
Thank you. Yes, they don't go. That's why we have to use the male ones. Yeah, it was so stupid.
I've tried the female ones before. I'm like, the catheter's like at the tip of my mitrofanoff, and I'm like bending over the toilet.
That doesn't work.
It does not work.
That would create such a mess.
It did. I think they accidentally sent me those one month, and that's why I was like, well, I guess I need to use them. It was terrible.
So I think what we learned from that is only use male catheters. Anyone with mitrofanoff out there?
Oh yes. And my I always growing up, when they'd say male on them, all my friends would always be like, why do these say male?
I know. Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I don't know. They're long.
Yeah, I never really understood what the difference really was until like I was older.
Yeah.
I never used a female one, so I didn't really know what the difference was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Female ones, short, because the female urethra is shorter.
Yes.
Male's longer.
I mean, it makes sense once you think about it, but...
Yeah, when I was a kid also, I was like, I'm not a male. Why do I need these ones?
Yep. Yeah. So I assume then, since your mom was so like involved with the bladder exstrophy community, that her communication like with you was really good about like what was going on and like all of your surgeries and things.
I feel like she did the best that she could.
Yeah.
She talked to me. They very much like tried to give me a voice, which I think was very kind and thoughtful, but also very stressful because I was like, I'm 9. Or like, I'm so young. They're explaining to me all these things. But what, like, that's a lot of pressure, you know? And even me right now, I think I get stressed about making medical decisions because I'm like, I don't know, but what's best for me? But a lot of the time I'm like, okay, let's just trust the doctors. But I think my parents have been very weary of trusting the doctors because of their experiences. Yeah. So even with the doctor that I'm seeing now, my mom is really worried. Like that something that's not right is going to be done just based off of her experience. So I think I'm really grateful for all that she does and the communication she does give to me. But sometimes it is stressful.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm like, oh man, I had to do big kid things adult things as a kid, which definitely prepared me, but also was really hard.
Yeah. I can say that. I mean, I think it definitely helped prepare me to have conversations with doctors, like as an adult when I was finally going by myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, like when I was 16, I was going to the doctor by myself. Because my mom was like, you can go. You've done this a million times. I'm like, I know, but I like having my mom.
Yep. Oh, yeah. I made my mom go with me to all my appointments until I actually moved away for college.
Yeah. She came out and visited like when I was graduating. Like I walked at graduation in April and I had an ultrasound scheduled at 6 a.m. the day that I was graduating.
Oh my gosh.
From college. And I was like, Mom, you want to come for old time's sake? She came and held my hand. So I was like, I just like having my mom there, you know? It's even if you can do it by yourself.
It's comforting.
Yes. It literally is so comforting.
It's a good sounding board, like if you have to make a decision on anything, to be like, Mom, what do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're not like alone trying to figure out what to do.
Yeah. And it's good that they don't, like my mom and dad are really good at like respecting what I choose. And I really appreciate that. And I feel like they've given me those tools to be able to make wise decisions for my health. So I'm really grateful.
That's good. That's really good. I don't know about you, but when I go to the doctor's office, just because my mom can't physically go with me doesn't mean I don't text her the entire appointment. Hey, I'm in the waiting room. Okay, now I'm in the room.
Yeah.
Doctor wants to do this, this, and this. Like, can I see a picture? Yes.
Yeah, no, I designate my husband to text her. She texts him. She's like, how's it going? He's like, IV in. Or like right after, that's when I call her. I like go out of the appointment. I'm in the cart. And then I call my mom, give her the whole update before I forget what happened.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I will forget. Like half of what's said.
Yep.
Yeah.
Last week when I got out of the outpatient surgery, I was literally loopy and I called my mom. I was like, Mom, I just wanted to let you know I'm okay. She's like, good to hear. What did they tell you? And I'm like, I can't. I'm too tired. But like, it is definitely like a comfort and a habit to call my mom every time I leave any medical facility.
Yeah. I mean, even if it's just her giving you like the encouragement of like, yeah, you did the right thing. Yeah, you made the good decision. Things like that. It's like, okay, yeah. I'm an adult.
I'm adulting. I can do this.
I'm taking care of myself.
It's so hard. It is so hard to take care of yourself. And that's what I've realized this year. I'm like, this is hard. I'm too exhausted for this sometimes.
Yeah. That's the other thing too, is like dealing with all of the insurance and like looking into disability stuff. When you do have like a disability and you're exhausted all the time, it's so much to handle. One would think they'd make the process a little bit more streamlined and like easier. Like the people impacted are the ones going through the process.
Yeah.
Like, shouldn't you make it easier on them versus harder?
Yeah. Amen, sister. I 100% agree.
So I want to talk about what you're dealing with today. You've mentioned you've been struggling with UTIs. Do you do anything else like on a daily basis, like medications or preventive care that you do to like kind of help? I mean, we kind of talked about cathing as well a little bit, but.
Yeah. So right now on a daily basis, what I'm like struggling with is like my energy from all of the infections just like weighing on my immune system.
Yeah.
So I'm taking Celebrex, which is an anti-inflammatory. Yeah, but it's helping.
I swear you've been on all of the same medications that I've been on. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm on that right now. I'm also taking iron because apparently I'm low on iron and I'm low on vitamin D. So I'm also taking vitamin D.
Oh my gosh.
So, and I'm also still struggling with constipation. So I take 2 laxative pills in the morning and drink a very gut healthy smoothie daily, if I remember. But I try, but it's just like, it's a lot of stuff.
It is a lot of stuff.
And so then I'm also trying to prevent infections. So I'm doing that by trying to drink a bunch of water, irrigate. I'm literally like with my doctor, I text him all the time if I like barely get a symptom or anything, which is really good. I've been getting like infections that can only be treated by like IV antibiotics. or shots. And so that's really been frustrating because I don't like IVs.
Who does?
Or shots, and my veins like to hide from them. So
Me too. I have the tiniest freaking veins.
yeah,
Like that's just a familial thing though. Like a bunch of my aunts, my grandpa, like everybody has tiny veins.
Yep, same with mine. Literally, my mom, she has such a hard time getting them in. I'm like, bro, can you see any veins on my hand? No, you can't. Everyone's like, yeah, you are a really hard stick. I'm like, yeah. And I've had so many IVs. I've learned to just like not freak out and just be like, yep, it's okay. Try again.
Yeah, as long as they don't dig, I don't care.
Yeah. Oh, when they start digging around, I'm like, just poke me again. I don't care.
I prefer it actually if you pull out and do again because that's freaking painful.
Yeah, super painful. And then I'm also with the back pain, I'm working on physical therapy with a specialist. I have like a back brace that I wear when they told me to use it like ibuprofen kind of. So they're like, if you feel like you should take ibuprofen, wear this back brace. And so yesterday, like my back was really hurting. I was like, okay, ibuprofen time. And I didn't take ibuprofen, but I put the brace on and it actually like helped a ton.
Oh, that's good.
So they said I might have, or they said I have like arthritis that developed in my SI joints. So that's kind of like the relief system. I also got like steroid shots in my SI joints, which was also a very weird experience if you ever have to go through but and then also on a daily basis, like I'm still figuring out sexual intimacy and things like that, and figuring all of that kind of stuff out and pleasure and things because it is just more difficult.
It is.
And so much more difficult than I feel like it should be. But
I'm really glad you said that because that's definitely something that I've struggled with quite a bit as well.
Yeah. And it's so frustrating because I'm like, I want to be physically intimate.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have a partner. Everybody wants that.
Yeah, I want to have that. Like, I want to have that connection. I know my husband like wants to have that connection, and he's so patient with me. But I'm also like, man, this sucks. I want to feel good right now, but for some reason, it's so stupid and it hurts. So we're figuring that out. I'm working with some people, like doctors and stuff, but it's a lot longer of a process than I thought.
Yeah.
I thought I'd just be like, here, dilate and you'll be fine. It's a lot more like work. And you have to go through like, oh, is this just like me emotionally like not connecting? And then I'm like, no,
that's
like
definitely not it.
definitely not that. Like, I have to just kind of sometimes shut off like what media says about sexual intimacy and like even if you search up things like, oh, how do you like love being sexually, like, I don't know. It's not the same for extrophy patients.
No, it's not.
It's hard to accept that.
Yeah.
But it is a journey.
I don't know why I never thought of like actually talking to a doctor about it.
Yeah, it's helped. Like, this estrogen treatment thing is actually helping a lot. And made it a lot less painful.
That's good.
Yeah.
I prefer things to not be painful.
I agree. And I prefer things to not even just not be painful, but I want a pleasurable experience too, you know?
Yeah.
So a lot of trial and error figuring things out.
Yeah.
But
there's a lot going on.
Yeah, I'm like, well, if I'm like not on a public podcast. If you want to talk more, I can. There's a lot of random trial and error. I talk with my friend. She lives in New Jersey, and we talk about it a lot. I'm like, so have you tried this before? I feel like it's good to be able to have people to talk to about it because there's some stuff that I didn't even think about that helped where I'm like, oh, is this just weird? And then I'm like, no, this is actually like, it's good, you know?
Yeah.
It's a human experience that's good.
That everyone should be able to experience. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, I'd be down to talk.
Yeah, me too. Whatever you've gone through, or anyone listening.
Yeah. So you just graduated with your BA. That's amazing. What did you study? I know you talked about what you're going into for graduate school, but I don't know what you actually graduated with this time.
Yes. So I have it's actually I got a BS, a Bachelor's of Science in Social Science. So it was a family life degree in human development.
Okay.
So I wanted to be a child life specialist. So I wanted to be like the person that like puts IVs in the bears and teaches the kids like how IVs work and how their surgeries work. But then I was like, I actually like don't like being in hospitals that much. Or like I don't like throw up. I don't like all that kind of stuff very much. So then I realized I really like social science research. So I was thinking of my career goals right now are to pursue like higher education. So I'll probably get a doctorate and do some research. I really want to research like exstrophy patients and help them like socially. I feel like there's a lot of research medically and a lot of talk medically, but not a lot of social talk.
Yep. 100%. That's why I started the podcast. Yeah.
Yeah. It's great. I'm so happy you started because I was thinking of doing a podcast like literally like 5 months ago. I was like, I should do a podcast. And then I like tried doing like one episode. And then I was like, I can't do a podcast.
It's terrifying.
Yeah. It's scary. It's hard. It's a lot of work. And it's just something that was not in the cards for me at that time. But I'm really grateful that you're doing this. Thanks. I think it'll help a lot of people.
I hope so. Awesome. Well, do you have anything else you want to say or any other fun stories for us?
Well, I guess, like at the end of my bachelor's, I just did like a project on gender and exstrophy. So that was really interesting because I had like over 20 people respond to my like form. And I found that a lot of people with exstrophy like really struggle with how their genitalia looks and how they feel about it and like don't talk to people about it and feel very unique. And I feel like that was a big thing that was like one of the biggest things for me growing up. And we didn't really talk about it except in medical terms. Mm-hmm. So that's something I'm interested in studying more about and figuring out how to like process personally and help others process. So I guess that's my thing that I'm thinking about currently.
I really like that because I think it's just one of those things that like anything below the belt is so uncomfortable to talk about that it's just not talked about. But like that causes so much more damage.
Yeah.
The, like not talking about it part.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. Like, I remember when I was going to get my vaginoplasty when I was 16, my like mom went with me to the appointment. And after we were going to meet my dad at like Habit Burger or something and talk about it, I remember sitting there like, my dad was like, how was the appointment? And I was like, good. Yep. And it was a very short, brief conversation. And like, I went through sex ed at school and it was just like different because I was different. And right. It made me wonder a bunch of stuff. And like, I knew people were knew it was an issue. Like at youth rally, they had like a 16 and older conversation. And they're like, if you have any questions, like ask or like, but I feel like I didn't really know the questions to ask.
Yeah.
It turned into a lot of people just sharing really scary personal experiences and terrified me more.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I feel like there's a lot of places where we can improve and help each other, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on.
Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity. Thanks for reaching out. I love it.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Body Talk with Becks. I hope you enjoyed this interview with Kylee about bladder exstrophy. If you did enjoy this episode, please leave me a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts at. Also, consider becoming a patron on patreon.com. We just rolled out some new great stickers for patrons, also available on the website. If you would like to share your story or know someone who would like to, I can be contacted through my website, www.bodytalkwithbecks.com, or on social media. Thanks for listening.